Hey everyone, this video is a tour of my new game room and workshop. Construction completed in early 2023, and since then I've been working on setting up the game room, the electronics room, and the woodworking shop. Alright, let's go inside. I have 22 arcade games and 2 pinball machines. I've been collecting arcade games since the late 80s and have always wanted a proper room for the games and other collectibles. The majority of my arcade games are from the early 80s, so they're games like Pac-Man, Tron, and Donkey Kong. Let's start at the far end here, where we have the kitchen and the conference table. The table's used for playing games such as RPGs and board games and collectible card games. On the wall is a TV where we can connect a laptop, do teleconferencing, or just stream a movie. Under the TV is a cabinet that I built recently. It's a display case with a bunch of 80s gaming collectibles. The cabinet is built from walnut hardwood and has built-in lighting. On the sides it has recessed panels with maple accents, and at the very bottom there's storage for board games. So let's take a look at the arcade games. Here we have Pac-Man, which was released in 1980 by Namco. Pac-Man was a huge hit for Namco and brought in over $10 billion in revenue, I think, in the first 2 years. Next we have Burger Time, and we have Donkey Kong, which was released in 1981 by Nintendo. This is definitely one of my favorite all-time games. Let's see, we've got Wizard of War, and we have Asteroids. Asteroids is a vector game which was made by Atari in 1979. This was actually the first arcade game that I bought way back in the late 80s. I found it for sale at a Round Table Pizza. And we have Zaxxon, and next we have Tron. Tron was made by Bally Midway in 1982, and it coincided with the release of the Tron movie. Over here we've got a Donkey Kong Jr. that was released in 1982. This is called a cocktail cabinet, where you sit down and play. The game supports 2 players who take turns playing, and the game flips the orientation for each player as it switches back and forth. Next up we have Berserk. This was made by Stern Electronics in 1980. Berserk was one of the first games to include digitized speech. Next to Berserk we have Star Wars, which is another classic Atari vector game, and that one was released in, I think, 1983. This one is called R-Type, which is a fun side-scroller, and I used to actually play this game in the break room when I worked at Nintendo. Here we have Space Invaders and Galaxian. Looks like something has gone wrong with Galaxian in the last 10 minutes. I'm going to have to take a look and see what's happened to it. And here we have Dig Dug by Atari. Next to it is Robotron, which was released in 1982 by Williams Electronics. Robotron continues to be a very popular game for collectors. Next to it we have Tempest, which is currently out of order. I just rebuilt the monitor a few months ago, so it's definitely sad to see it down again. I'll have to spend some time on it. I've got at least 3 or 4 games right now that are out of service. Most of the arcade games here are 40 plus years old, so they do require a certain amount of ongoing maintenance. Sometimes the old CRT monitors stop working and need to be rebuilt. Other times things like the power supply goes out or components fail on the main board. But part of this hobby is working on the electronics and fixing the problems that happen. Later I'll show the electronics room where I work on repairing the games. Next, let's take a look at the pinball machines. The one on the right is called Egghead, and it was made in 1961 by a company called Gottlieb. This is an electromechanical game, which means it has no computer or integrated circuits, and instead it operates entirely using switches, relays, and other mechanical components. My parents actually bought this game when I was about 12 years old. We just happened to meet a person who owned some commercial pinball machines, and he had this one for sale. One of the unique features of this game is that you play tic-tac-toe on the center board by rolling over sensors and then hitting bumpers to place the X and O's on the board. It implements the tic-tac-toe game logic using a rotating mechanical cylinder inside that has dozens of switches and relays that maintain the game state. It's pretty amazing. To the left here we have a modern Godzilla pinball machine made by Stern Pinball. This game was released in 2021, which makes it exactly 50 years newer than the Egghead machine next to it. Games have come a long way since then. Unlike the Egghead game, Godzilla has a computer inside that runs the game logic and drives the audio and the video. The game is also online and will automatically download software updates. Stern has a online service called Insider Connect that allows players to sign into the machine using a QR code reader on the front of the machine here. So you basically can scan a QR code from your phone, and then the machine will save your high scores and achievements, and then they'll show up on the Stern leaderboards. Godzilla has some innovative features, such as a destructible building that moves up and down. There's also a destructible bridge, and there's also a magnetic ball grab here behind Mechagodzilla. The game also has a nice soundtrack that includes the original Godzilla song by Blue Oyster Cult. Alright, let's take a look at the artwork. Most of the artwork on the walls of the game room are 80s movie posters. These are some of my favorite movies from that time, including Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, War Games, Tron, and of course the Star Wars trilogy. In the center of the room we have some chairs and a coffee table. Under the table we have a vintage Pac-Man rug, and on top is a Godzilla figure that I got to go with the Godzilla pinball machine. So to power all these games, I had 5 dedicated 20 amp circuits installed in the room. There's outlets in the walls and in the floor and also in the ceiling. Speaking of the ceiling, I have a DJI Rotosphere up there, which is a rotating light ball that can create a variety of nice effects. Alright, next let's head to the back. So here's another cabinet that I built. This one is made from hard maple and has drawers for storing modular gaming terrain. The sides have recessed walnut panels. The walnut that I used here actually came from my grandfather's cabinet shop, so that was a nice touch. The drawers are fairly thin, so they can store as much gaming terrain as possible. And back here is the bathroom. On the walls here I have some vintage Atari patent drawings, and then above the sink is a custom mirror that I made, which features bezel art from the Mario Brothers game. My wife had the idea of using bezel art to create an interesting frame for the mirror. I think it added a nice touch to the bathroom. Alright, let's take a look at the electronics room. Here is a Battlezone game that I've been repairing. It's almost done. This rack here has a security monitor on the top, and there's an amplifier there that powers the audio throughout the building. On the bottom shelf is an original NES console connected to a Sony Trinitron TV. The center table here provides some extra workspace and storage for work in progress. Here's a desk with the computer that I use in the shop. And this is another game that I'm working on repairing. It's a Robotron in a mini cabinet, which is a fairly rare game. The monitor in this one stopped working a while back. Here we have my electronics bench. This is where I repair game boards, monitor assemblies, and other things that stop working. Let's see. These shelves here contain a variety of replacement parts for arcade games. This includes things like flyback transformers, ICs, transistors, capacitors, and other parts. It's nice having a good selection of parts on hand when making repairs. Over here we have some vintage game cartridges and some surplus boards from arcade games. Some of these work and others are just for parts. On this whiteboard I keep track of what games need repairs and the details of the problems that they have. Here's a closer look at the electronics bench. On the bottom we have soldering and desoldering stations, a multimeter, and an electronics microscope. On the top shelf is an oscilloscope and some other test equipment. Down here we have the monitor assembly from the Robotron Mini that we saw earlier. I am not sure yet what's wrong with it. This is the woodworking side of the building. It's taken me about a year to get everything set up over here. Here's a Laguna bandsaw and a drill press. This is the first thing that I built for the shop. It's a 4-foot by 8-foot assembly table made from hard maple with a Baltic birch top and a walnut band around the edge. One of the features that I designed for this table was a spot to sit at it like a desk. This is a nice feature for when you want to sit down and work on something. Here we have what's called a French cleat tool wall. It consists of horizontal slats where you can place hangers to hold tools and other items. The hangers hook onto the slats and you can move them around as much as you like to organize the tools. Below is a shelf that I built to go under the tool wall. I have hand tools on top and more storage on the shelves underneath. Here we have a Schoberg style workbench that was built by my grandfather, who was a professional cabinet maker. It was given to me recently by my dad, who is also a woodworker and the person who taught me all about woodworking. This workbench is very special to me and I feel fortunate to have it in my shop here. Here we have a saw stop table saw next to the dust collection system. Above it is a jet air filter. Here is a miter station that I built. In the center is the miter saw, And basically you lay down materials on the platform to cut. Over here is a jet planer, and beyond that we have a Powermatic jointer. Both the planer and the jointer were given to me by my dad. I think the jointer was originally owned by my grandfather, so it's probably 50 or 60 years old. Over here we have a woodworking CNC machine. It's an Elite Foreman by Onefinity with a 4-foot by 4-foot work surface where it can cut out and carve materials. This is the controller that drives the machine. I can send plans to it over Wi-Fi from the computer in the electronics room. On there right now is a Pac-Man project that I had the machine cut out. I built a 6-foot by 6-foot table to hold the machine, and on the lower shelf is the dust collection system. The whole thing is on wheels, so I can move it out if necessary. Down below is the spindle VFD controller and the CNC interface box. Here's some examples of things that I've carved with the CNC machine so far. I just got it set up a few months ago and I'm still learning how to design projects on the computer and machine them on the CNC. So far it's been pretty fun, and I'm planning to do some more complex projects this year. Over here we have a counter with some cabinets and the shop sink. Down here on the far end we have material storage. I do a lot of work with maple and walnut hardwood. There's other species here such as fir, pine, cedar, and oak. I also have some exotic hardwoods including purple heart, zebra wood, wenge, and bloodwood. At the end here are some sheet goods including maple and walnut plywood, and I think some Baltic birch. I'm happy to have most of the shop infrastructure work done now, so I can switch to spending time on more general projects and making things with the CNC machine. Thanks everyone for watching the video this far, and I hope you enjoyed the tour of the shop and the game room.